Goedenavond iedereen. U is wel gekomen op deze Start2Taste online. Mijn naam is Dimitri Bonte en mijn bedrijf heet Start2Taste. Voor de mensen die ons nog niet kennen, Hans Tak is mijn rechterhand. Die ga je straks, of die heb je al gezien op het scherm, die zal ook wel nu en dan een keer iets zeggen. Wij gaan er een leuke avond van maken, dat is vooral de bedoeling. We hebben de eer en het genoegen om een van de grootste wijnmakers onder ons te hebben. Die gaan we dan uiteraard straks uitgebreid aan het woord laten. Maar goed, terug misschien eerst naar ons, voor de mensen die ons nog niet kennen of nog niet goed kennen. Wij zijn Start2Taste en Start2Taste zit in Waregem en wij zijn bezig met smaken. Zeg, ja, dat is normaal als wijnhandelaar dat je met smaken bezig bent, en wel, dat vind ik ook. Nochtans zijn er heel veel die zich laten beperken door een grens, door een landsgrens, geografisch. Wij gaan beyond, om het dan zo te zeggen. Wij volgen een smaak en dat brengt ons in heel veel verrassende, vernieuwende streken, landen en zo verder. Dus we kunnen kort samenvatten dat onze passie ontdekken is en onze tweede passie is om het te delen. Vandaar een avond zoals dit. Want hoe kunnen we vanavond mensen samenbrengen, levensgenieters en meerwaardezoekers? Dat zie ik nu, zo'n 30-tal mensen voor mij zitten, en wel door deze manier. En we doen er nog veel meer, die komen straks wel aan bod op het einde van deze degustatie. Maar in ieder geval, wees welkom vanavond. We gaan er iets heel leuks en educatiefs van maken. Naar goede gewoonte begin ik altijd met een mindmap. Om het een klein beetje te schetsen. Voilà. I'm going to do this in English, so Reinhard also can follow what I'm saying. And if I'm wrong, Reinhard, you correct me for sure. So, shortly, we have Germany, of course. This is where it all is going to be all about tonight. And if you Google Moezel, but because this is really the area or the region that we are going to focus on, and maybe I should zoom in so everybody knows correctly where the Moezel is. This is the Moezel, if you have Germany. So very close to Belgium. Actually, together with the R, the closest region, if you want to visit the German wine areas. But Moezel, what happens if you Google Moezels? I always like to start like that. And if you Google Moezel, for sure, you need to know it's a river. So it's a river which has a source in the Vogezen, of course, in the Vosges Mountains, which has a total length of 544 kilometers and which ends in Koblenz. En hij eindigt eigenlijk in de rivier de Rijn. But it is also a program language. Did you know that, Reinhard? It's actually a program language for software.
Sounds fantastic. Never heard about this.
Yeah, yeah. And it is a town in the USA.
Okay.
Really. And of course, it is a wine region and not one normal wine region. It is really the oldest German wine region. So, and I think one of the most famous wine regions too, certainly for Belgium. In general, when we go to Germany, Riesling, of course, the queen of the grapes, is the most common planted grape in Germany. I only mentioned 3. I know there are lots more in Germany planted, but I think the most famous of the most planted are Riesling, Spätburgunder, and Weissburgunder. We can also discuss a little bit about all the 13 wine regions in Germany. I presented them here in order of size. So the biggest one is Rheinhessen. Then we have the Pfalz, Baden, Württemberg, and Mosel. Mosel is the 5th largest wine region, which has a little bit less than 9,000 hectares, which is, of course, mostly white. 91% is white. But in terms of production, it is the 3rd largest wine region. Okay. Let's zoom in again. When we do a focus on Moezel, and if we look a bit to the history, for not so long time ago, so before August 2007, it was mentioned or called Moezel Saarruhr. Now today it's only Moezel called. So that's a little bit of changement. Maybe later in the tasting we can talk about that. But it has also the steepest vineyards in the world. It has like a degree of 65 degrees, which is the Bremer Kalmont. And you need to know that the half of the vineyards inclines over the 30 degrees. So it's very, very steep vineyards. Dus zeer steile wijngaarden. They all, of course, they are a side of the Moezel River, which the sun can catch them very well. The reflection of the water also helps to very ripens the grapes. They also south and southwest facing slopes. Dus kijk allemaal naar het zuid en zuidwesten uit. Wat kan ik er nog van zeggen? Zodat de druiven zeer mooie rijp komen. Very famous for his soil, which has leesteen, slate we call it in English, but leesteen in Dutch, which is we have ideale drainage when it's heavy rainfalls, but also it also captures the heat. Of course, in the Moezel is Riesling the most important one, but we also have Müller-Thurgau, which is also Rivaner, which is the same. Elbling, which seems to be the oldest wine grape in Europe, and Spätburgunder with a very small percentage. You can also divide Moezel, let's say, in 3 areas: the upper, the middle, and the lower Moezel. Maybe more about that. We can focus inside that if Reinhard is on speaking. And just to mention, when we just mentioned that they have very steep slopes, this is here steile wijngaarden. It's very intensive to work in these vineyards. And if you compare it, for example, with Bordeaux and Médoc, you have 7 times more man hours needed than in Médoc to work in the Moezel in the vineyards. So it's a huge, huge, huge work. If you go just to have a look, I already mentioned that Riesling is the most common grape, but here you can see for the Moezel region in the diagram how big every proportion is visual of every grape which is planted, of almost every grape which is planted. So that was a very small introduction. I feel very small also between these, of next to Reinhard, which is one of the most famous, I guess, and also one of the best winemakers in the Moezel. So Reinhard, big thank you already for being here. And I'm very curious to see you doing your thing, which is talking with passion about your life, about what you're doing, about your wine. So welcome, and stage is yours.
Thanks. That means you want to do me.
You can do a small introduction about.
Okay. Hello. Okay. Okay. So then, hello from my side. Hello from my side. Well, I think I don't want to speak too much in the early beginning. I think it's better to speak during the tasting to give you an idea of different aspects of winemaking in Moselle. So the problem is that there are so many different dimensions and perspectives how to speak about wine that for me it's always a bit difficult because I don't know you, I don't know your questions. So I want more to play the role to react to what you are curious to get from me than to make my speeches. It's true that winemakers always, there are some missionaries that want to change the world and they speak and speak and speak. And if everyone would drink more wine, there was no war and no crime in the world anymore. That's true. But it's on the other side now. Please allow me to come back to your question then, to give too much. Maybe one aspect, which is one of the main aspects of our work, is to reflect the situation that we are not living in the time of my grandfather. You know, my grandfather was the one who wanted to make a wine which is drinkable and storable. There were some years it happened, others less. This, to make a good drinking wine, to make a nice taste, this is today the snow of yesterday. Because if you buy the book and you have some money in your pocket, you can organize a wine which has a nice taste. So the new challenge is what's behind the question of have a nice taste. First question is, how was this taste made? And second question is, what does this taste mean? Is it a taste of what happened in the vineyard? Is it a taste of what happened in the cellar? Is it the taste what happened in the marketing? So there are millions of focuses of a modern product in a development society. When you go to the taste of Red Bull, for example, the product is defined by completely different characters than old-fashioned beer or a modern beer or a modern wine. Our big problem in wine is that you don't see the difference. When you go to a live concert or you go to buy an MP3 player, there is no discussion about what's culture and what's plastico, what's industrial product, what's authentic, what's artificial. And we are suffering from the situation that all wines are bottled in a nice bottle. All wines show a nice label, which try to make you believe that's a divine product. And maybe the taste is not too bad. So how could you think about to judge about the cultural level of this product? This is our biggest challenge in the communication of wine, to speak about or to give ideas or to give you characters or to give you questions which you could bring to the winemakers to find out which side on the life it is. So first, I have to declare that I'm not against industrial production of wine. I'm very happy that it happens because it's a very good aspect of industrial revolution that poor people are able to drink a bottle of wine, which costs 2, 3, 4 euros only in the supermarket. 40 years ago, the wine was like harming you. It was impossible to drink. Now you can drink this without getting sick, or you got to have to warm or whatever. So this is a new challenge. So these ones are there, they are good. I'm very happy for that. I'm very happy that I don't have to pay 1,000 euros for my trushes, which are made, I have a blue jeans, which costs nothing. This is an industrial product, but I'm happy for that because I don't have the 1,000 euros to make it from organic, I don't know, cotton and. So it's wine is it's not an easy product. And but on the other hand, in modern marketing, they try to tell me you are too difficult. Keep it simple and stupid. This is what they teach you at university. No, good things are not simple and they're not stupid. Good music, good artists, good art, good paintings. They're not easy. You have to invest work to understand. You have to invest energy to understand what it means. So if you want to go to the simple way of life, it's okay. But I'm fighting against the profanization of wine. I'm fighting against the profanization of real, serious, good products. They are not easy to understand, but why should they be easy? I would say all good things in this world are not easy. And this keep it simple and stupid thinking is something what I'm really fighting against for what we do. Our product is not easy. It's difficult. You have to invest energy. You have to invest emotions. You have to invest time to wait the moment that this world of wine will open. Oh, yes, I'm speaking too much. Sorry. Go on. Sorry.
No, you're doing very fine. I forgot to mention that everybody could already pour his glasses, maybe half of a bottle in the glasses because they need some air. And maybe at the same time, when we are talking, Reinhard, we can start with the first wine, which is the Schieferterrassen 2019. And maybe it's also a good idea to show some things just to show you where you are situated, which I have here. So if you zoom out just a little bit, just to show you where we are. Belgium, Germany. And if we then search for, oh no, stop too early, like this. We can see where you are now, I guess.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
So this is the house, and this is the, can you say a little bit what we are seeing now?
Yeah, this is nearby where I'm sitting at the moment.
Yeah. So next to the Moezel, actually. And if you zoom out again, then we saw that the Moezel is really going very turning. This is Koblenz. I'm going to go to the north again, because this is the good position. You're very in the north of the Moezel.
That's true.
Yeah.
We're the most northern and most eastern point of Moezel.
Yeah. So this is the Moezel there, you can see, very turny. And can you explain a little bit what is the difference between the north and the south?
Yes, I can. There are some. First, I have to speak about I would say the subconscious of our Northern Europe people is that we say the more sun, the better the wine. This is, I think it's since thousands of years that we think that way, that we all are dreaming from Mediterranean summer and holidays and all this. And for a lot of products, it's true. I don't want to have olive trees from Germany. I prefer them coming from Mediterranean area. But when we speak about wine, it's the contradiction. Our wine is not good because we have that much sun. Our wine is that good because it's that cold. This we have to discuss because it's against our feelings. The wine is good because it's cold. That means there is a lot of time between the blossoming and the ripeness. We have some 120 to 150 days instead of 80 days in the hot south in Italy, let me say. And this brings the situation that our wine is not cooked on a hot flame, but on a very low flame. Because at the end of the day, we are not producers of alcohol or sugar, we are producers of flavor, of aromatas. And it's like a little strawberry in the forest, which is tiny, 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 but has a million times more aromatas than the fat thing you get from Andalusia in the supermarket. So this is the idea of the producing of the north. The other aspect of north is that against of comparing it with Sicily, the changement of climate, even from one year to the other, has a very high impact to the synthesis of flavor and the ripeness of the fruit. So for us, when we speak about our wines, there is not one year like the other. I would say when you make in Sicily and you say, okay, let's wait 2 more weeks, then we have the same ripeness than the year before. So the vintage doesn't matter so much. The vintage in Northern Europe is quite important. Like not only Mosel, this is like the Northern Europe. This is Mosel, Rhine River, and so on. It's Alsace, it's especially Rhone, where the vintages are so difficult. The more you go to the edge of a climate, the more you have the impact of not only the vineyard, but also of the climate. When we go with this idea to Moselle, then we have to admit that the difference between where we are in the most northeastern point, compare this with the most southwestern point, where our friend Egon Müller at Saar is located, you see a lot of differences. You see the first difference in the high of altitude. The vineyards of Egon Müller, they started 150 meters over sea level, sorry. We start at 75, so we have nearby 100 meters different in the altitude, in the high of. And 100 meters difference makes in agriculture nearly 1 degree Celsius in average. So we are in the north, but we are a little bit warmer caused by this. Then we are nearby the Rhine Valley. The Rhine Valley is a valley which goes south-north, and it's like a chimney to bring hot climate from the south to our area. So the average of temperature where we are is 1 degree Celsius higher than Mittelmosel or Saar. Then, on the other hand, it's a little bit drier where we are. And at the end of the day, we have different soils. The soil and the climate is the most important impact of what we understand by terroir wine and what we want to explore. The soils where we are, they are not that high clay contented, but more sandy. And the more sandy a soil is, the aeration is better, the drainage is better, and you have a higher temperature in deeper parts of the soil, which means in spring, the start of the vegetation is earlier and the ripeness is a little bit further. This all aspects give us a situation that we find harmony in wine without a high sugar level when you compare it to Saar. Our wines have a higher physiological ripeness, and so we don't need sugar to bring wine in balance. Because this is one of the very important aspects of wine also. I hate this discussion, is this wine sweet or not sweet? I hate it in the same way to say, is this wine bitter or not, or sour or not sour? There are wines which are good, and the wine which is good shows harmony. And sometimes a good wine shows no harmony. Like a good Barolo from a traditional grower, he shows no harmony in a young time because the tannin structure is too strong. And then we all say, okay, this is a fantastic wine. We know that we have to wait 10 or 15 years to bring this wine in harmony, that the polymerization of the phenolics got soft, and then we can drink the wine. And the same is when you go to a sweet wine from Egon Müller. When he is young, for me, it's undrinkable. It's like limonade. But when it's 10, 20 years old, it's fantastic. The sugar it's the same story. The sugar in the Riesling is the same story than the tannin structure in a Pinot Noir or in a Cabernet or whatever. It's a tool of preservation, and you have to wait that the taste is away. Wines are good when the harmony is there between soil, phenolics, acidity, sharpness of alcohol, and if you want, the umami aspect of wine. If this is in harmony, the wine is fantastic. And then the idea, which is the essential of our aspect of wine, the idea of a vineyard, what we call terroir, this can pass through. And then the wine is something beside only good drinking and only harmonious beverage. Then we are in the idea. So our harmony we find with quite lower sugar level. So the wines, I don't know whatever we will drink tonight, but the first, like Schieferterrassen, is a wine with a very low sugar level. But for me, he doesn't need more sugar to be in harmony. I'm not fighting against sugar, I'm fighting for harmony in the wine. And this, in our region, is, as we have this low acidity level, we don't need the harmony. And, well, okay, there is another aspect of our area. We call it not lower Mosel. This is the one, it's a term which I don't like so much. We call it the terrassen-Moezel because the identity of our area is that we have the highest percentage of terraced vineyards from all the area. Like in my village, 75% of the vineyards that are terraced. In our winery, we have 98% of slopes which are terraced. And this is the identity, and terraced is also an aspect of, to compare it with modern agriculture. Even if you have a steep slope, you can use caterpillars, you can use modern machines to labor the soil. And the soil is, if you want to say, the soil is the essential of speaking about a terroir wine. And the big problem is that the modern winemaking is influenced by too much manipulation of soil. And the more you can labor, the more you bring in organic stuff, the more you can dig, the more you give fertilization, you do this and this and this. And I have the feeling that there are less and less authentic soils in modern vineyards. And we have terraces where you cannot use machines, you cannot press soil together, you cannot violate the natural processes of mineralization of slate to bring it back to the grape and all those things. So for me, the working on terraces is the fantastic story to be in contact with soil, to be in contact with a soil which was not labored since the very early beginning. And you told already that it was the Roman guys who started winemaking. We know that it was when the Romans came, there were already terraces because the Celtic tribes living there, they had gods of wine. So you don't need a god of wine if you don't have wine. So there was terraced vineyards. And it was never labored. So the soil we have there was never destroyed. And this is maybe the biggest heritage we have in our area. And I'm so proud to live on this, to work on, labor on a soil, which was maybe made 2,000 years ago. We know it. In some plots, we know exactly. We don't know it for all plots because the Romans, they don't have a cadastre, so we cannot prove that it was here and there. But we have one plot, Luc knows it, Uhlen-Laubach, where they found Roman coins, even on the highest terraces, which they gave there for donation in springtime to make gift to their gods.
Yeah, I have a
fantastic story.
This is the picture.
Like this is exactly what you show here. This is exactly the place on the top here in the middle where they found the coins. Exactly this area. Yeah.
Yeah. It's unbelievable when you see this. This is wow.
Yeah, and it's also another aspect of, it's like the hanging gardens of Babylon, you know. It's also when you see this picture, you may understand that we say wine is not a natural product. Wine is a child of civilization, because this is not a natural land. This is a land which got domesticated by our forefathers. And I hate this idea, wine to be nature. This brings us away from the focus to a very strange aspect. Wine is a child of civilization, maybe the oldest proof of civilization. Maybe it's when you read books about the Neolithic guys who settled in an area, and when they settled, they could start with the wine production, and it was also the time where the consumer started. So this is maybe wine is the oldest proof of culture. We call it agriculture, and wine is one of the oldest, maybe the oldest proof of agriculture. And we should not speak about good nature and bad humans. This may be the guys from the Catholic Church that could work on this. I'm more on the trip to say the question we have today is how human beings interact with nature. This is our question. Is this a beloved accompaniment or violation? And where we are living, we are working with nature, but sometimes also against nature. It's also the ideology of the generation Bambi that we say nature is the mother big breast who gives you always mother milk. It's stupid. The nature is something, sometimes you have to be friends, sometimes nature is my enemy. When I see that all the walls, they break down in winter time and it costs me 50,000 euros to you know, in total, we have 13 kilometers of walls in our winery. You can imagine how expensive it is to repair these walls. I'm not really happy to see this aspect of nature, the rainfalls in wintertime and all that. So it's working with nature, against nature, profiting from nature. It's to take and to give, and it's a process of development. And I think the woolen picture you saw, this is like the hanging gardens. I already spoke about Babylon. This is a fantastic proof of agriculture in the real sense of the word.
Okay, I will do a little translation, but it will be short. There's a lot of things that have been said. Dus ja, ik denk dat het grootste deel wel duidelijk is. Hè. Ik denk als er 3 woorden naar voren springen, dan is het harmonie, complexiteit en puurheid. Dus ja, we spreken over de meest noordoostelijke deel van de Moezel. Ook wel de lower of de lage Moezel genoemd, wat hij eigenlijk niet zo graag hoort. Hij spreekt liever van terras of terrassen-Moezel, wat we duidelijk gezien hebben op de foto. Dat is ook de reden waarom hij zegt van de wijn is eigenlijk geen natuurlijk product. In die zin dat het geen natuurlijke vegetatie is, bij wijze van spreken, op die terrassen. Het is wel duidelijk aangeplant. Als je weet dat er 30 kilometer muurtjes gemaakt zijn om de terrassen, om tegen te gaan dat de aarde wegspoelt, dat een terroir wegspoelt. Ja, dan kan je niet zeggen dat het op zich een puur natuurlijk product is, want er komt toch wel wat arbeid bij kijken. Wat hij zegt is dat het belangrijk is, iedereen denkt, of er wordt veel gedacht van veel zon geeft goede wijn. Daar is hij totaal niet mee akkoord. Ik denk dat we daar allemaal niet mee akkoord zijn. Het gaat erom om dat er veel tijd moet zijn tussen, bij wijze van spreken, de bloesem of het schieten van het blad tot de rijpheid van het fruit. Dus het is continu werken met de natuur, soms tegen de natuur. Hij spreekt over terroirwijnen. Terroir is niet enkel de ondergrond, zoals dat we hier de leisteen hebben, maar is eigenlijk ook het klimaat. Dus hij vergelijkt bijvoorbeeld de wijngaarden van Egon Müller met zijn wijngaarden naar klimaat toe bijvoorbeeld. En dan zitten de wijngaarden van Egon Müller op 150 meter boven de zee, boven zeeniveau. De wijngaarden dat we hier de wijnen gaan van drinken zitten ongeveer op 75 meter boven zeeniveau. Dus dat is een verschil van ja, een kleine 100. En dan moet je weten dat een verschil van 100 meter in hoogte een verschil van 1 graad Celsius geeft. Waardoor dat de wijnen, ja, het is iets warmer daar, het is ook iets droger. Er zijn verschillende ondergronden. Er is ook wat sandy ondergrond, dus je hebt een goede drainage. In de diepere delen heb je daardoor ook wat hogere temperatuur, wat ook weer een verschil maakt. Maakt namelijk het verschil dat de druivenstokken wat vroeger in blad gaan komen en in bloesem gaan komen. Dus ja, het belang is eigenlijk de fysiologische rijpheid van de wijnen, om die perfecte harmonie na te streven. En ik denk dat daar eigenlijk zowat alles mee gezegd is. Die harmonie en die complexiteit. Wijn is niet gemakkelijk, wijn is moeilijk, zegt hij. Dus het is een continu zoeken en een continu werken. Dus ik denk dat dat naadloos aansluit bij misschien het proeven van de eerste wijn, Dimitri.
Yeah, for sure we need to taste the first wine, which is the Schieferterrassen 2019. It is actually the only 2019 in the tasting. All the rest of the whites are 2018. So Schieferterrassen 19, can you explain a little bit 19 and 18, what will be the difference?
I can speak about the differences of the taste you have for the moment, but this is another approach to speak about the difference between the vintages. And it's always very difficult to speak about vintages when they are young. I can speak about 19, 18, maybe in 10 years, then we know exactly to speak about the identity of the vintage. For the moment, it's very funny that since years I have the feeling that from the beginning of March, I get an approach to the new vintage. Before that, I don't like them. They're too young. They are too, I don't know, too chaotic. Now I start to love it. I think it's a wine which starts to show some aspects of harmony. Still much too young for me. But the question is, what does it mean? The wine for me, the wine for you? You have to find out what you like. No? It's one of the very stupid approaches to wine that the winemaker or the journalists say, this wine, no, it's as its best. No? There are people who want to hear music with headphones. Others go to, they hear Mozart in the car. Others go to an opera hall. And when I was young, I was teaching you, you have to drink this wine then, and that, and this, and this, and this. Maybe it's a question of getting older that you get more free to say, if you like the wine as young as he is now, drink it. For me, I would say, wait. But sometimes I say, now tonight I want to have it young and fresh and crispy. So
yeah, it depends on the moment, of course.
Wine it's a very nice it's a very nice tool to find out what you like. It's something to get surprised every day. It's something to discover new things. 19 was a vintage to compare to 18. When you speak about the climate, it was not that hot than 18 was, but not far away from this. The yields were quite lower than 18. But what does it mean? The problem is when we speak about wine, we always try to get some objectives because we are lost in space, we are lost in the atmosphere. But what does it mean when I say it was nearby that hot? It's zero information, because to bring this to the flavor, then I should speak about in the development state of the berry of this, then it was this temperature and this water and this and this and this. And then we come to a level where I have to say, I have no idea. I know that it is. I know that it's all a complex story with climate and all those things, but I have no idea because I'm not a scientist, and I'm sure that even the scientists, they don't know exactly about this question. So for me, it's at the end of the day, it's like, what's the difference between Hafner and Jupiter Symphony of Mozart? Could you tell me that? There are, if you are a composer and you studied music, you could have some objectives in this. And if we go to the analysis, you also have objectives. But this is a zero information, because the only thing which should be important for you is what happened on your palate. It's the question, what happens on your palate, what gives the wine you in question of what you're looking for. To have a wine to be drunken, to accompany food. Which food you want to have? Spicy stories, hot stories, you want to have vegetables, European kitchen. So it's a large range. You want to have a wine drinking in the morning at 11 when you are cooking. You want to have it in the evening watching TV. So there are millions of ideas you can use this wine. And I'm so fighting against of this is like this and this like this. So please excuse when I don't give you the data of how this wine tastes. I can speak if you want about strawberry and raspberry flavors. But what does it mean when I speak this is like the strawberry, or this was the marmalade of blueberries I got 25 years ago when I was visiting my old aunt there and there. You exactly know my old aunt and you exactly know how the strawberry, this is tautology, this is blah, blah, this is wine marketing, but you will not be more knowledge, you will not have more knowledge after that than you had before. One is an invitation to taste it. And it's, maybe you know this guy, was a psychologue in the time of Sigmund Freud called Rorschach. And it's he made a test with ink on the flavor, and then you open it, and then you have a fantasy pictures. And for me, wine is like a Rorschach test. You can find out your soul in the wine. You can find a you in the wine. It's a tool to develop your fantasy. It's a tool that you have fun with it, to go in it, to enjoy it, to use it. It's up to you to use this fantastic drug.
Yeah, it teleports you to another world. That's the meaning of wine, of course. That it brings you, in another state of mind, and it's to enjoy the moment.
It's for me. It's my idea of wine is to give you an idea of. Please allow me to use this big word of emancipation. This is the difference between the simple supermarket wines, which are more on the side on mother milk. You drink them and you relax and you pamper and you get to sleep. Sometimes it's okay. But a good wine is something which has always a short dimension of provocation, which has an idea of you drink it and you say, what's this? It's like a good piece of art where you always have the dimension of alienation inside, which is not only easygoing drinking. This is the Coca-Cola side of life. Coca-Cola is sweet, or McDonald's, this is sweet and creamy. This is children food and children taking things. This is okay, that will feed you, that will give you a nice feeling, a warm feeling in the stomach. You sleep well, everything is okay. But the wine as, we speak about wine, it's spirit in the wine and spirit here. It's something which I think it's a drug of development of consciousness. And if we use the word natural wine, the nature of the wine is to develop mind. And this terminology, I'm one who makes natural wine, if you want, because this is the essence of wine is to allow you to develop your mind. In which region? And I'm a man who is fighting for emancipation. That means I want to give you open dimensions. It's up to you to find this aspect of wine to be important, and this is more important. Like you see a good picture. When you see a picture of art, when it says you have to look to this and then and then and then. For me, this is not art. This is Soviet realism of the Soviet society or whatever. I want to see a picture where I don't know exactly what I see, where I see 5 times, 10 times. A good wine you can taste 1,000 times, and you always will discover a new aspect. Like you go to see a nice picture.
It's like saying if you see art, for example, it's just the same way. If you see some pieces of art, a painting or a sculpture, it's up to you to think what you see and what you like and what you don't like. And maybe the next time you discover something new in the painting or in the sculpture or no matter. But in fact, it's art. It's depending on the moment also. Yeah. So it's depending also on the moment you see something. You're in a different mood or you're in a different way of your life or no matter what. So you look to things that in another way. Dus dat is een beetje hetgeen dat hij zegt. Van, wijn mag niet gemakkelijk zijn. Hè. Wijn is complex. Hij spreekt dus niet graag over het feit van wat is het verschil nu tussen 2018 en 2019. Hij zegt van er zijn zodanig veel verschillende factoren die meespelen. Niet enkel het klimaat, maar het kan ook zijn dat er iets vroeger bloei geweest is. Het kunnen ook andere zaken zijn die meespelen. Dus dat is één aspect. En ten tweede, als je de wijn drinkt, ja, dan zijn je nooit in dezelfde mood, nooit hetzelfde gevoel, bij wijze van spreken. Dus de wijn zal iedere keer ook anders smaken. En dan maakt het ook boeiend, dat je iedere keer andere dingen ontdekt. Dus dat is hetgeen waar dat hij eigenlijk graag over spreekt, over de complexiteit en de harmonie ontdekken in de wijn. En vooral het uwe van denken. Thanks.
Very good. So, when we started, maybe
I want to come back to one question, please. There was a question about the walls, if they are important for the microclimate. It's something what you can read in a lot of wine books, that the walls and the stones would be important for to cover the heat and give it back in the night. It's true that they're still like they are like a heater. They're warm and they give back a little bit more temperature. But I think this is not the essential question of the walls. The walls are made to make possible to label the country, the land, because the slope is at 70 degrees, 65 degrees sometimes, and you cannot work there. You will slip down. So you have to make a wall to make sure that you can work there inside. No? So this is the reason we have the walls, to break the inclination of the landscape.
And I have a movie about that. Okay, it's a little bit of a funny movie with some sommeliers which are having fun on the walls or on the slope. But anyway, it shows you very well the vineyard.
Ist kein Foto. Jammers, Leute, neben mir ist Marian Hens. Marian, wo sind wir hier und was hast du heute vor mit mir, Bro?
Wir sind in Winninger-Uhlen, eine der steilsten Lagen der terrassen-Moezel. Der Teil gehört zu Heymann Löwenstein. Da vorne sitzt Tim in der Monorack-Bahn. Und meine Challenge ist heute, du fährst mit uns da oben, du schenkst 6 Leuten, die oben im Weinberg arbeiten, gleichmäßige Gläser ein und kein Tropfen geht vorbei.
Ja, aber Sommelier kann ich einschenken, das kann ich.
Denk dran, gleichmäßige Gläser wie bei Marc Almert.
Alles klar, okay. Challenge accepted. Seid ihr soweit?
Auf jeden Fall.
Okay, let's go.
Okay.
Cool. Ich bin ready, voll easy, okay hier. Ich soll schon mal einen Schluck Wasser, ist so heiß hier. durstig! Sehr durstig! Was darf sein? Glas Wein!
Jammers. Danke, Bro, für die hammermäßige Challenge. Ich muss zugeben, ich habe mir das deutlich einfacher vorgestellt. Mit dem Einchecken hat ja ganz gut geklappt, aber ja, die Gläser waren halt nicht gleich voll, muss ich zugeben.
Trotzdem Respekt, war mega anstrengend und vor allem, ich würde sagen, bestanden.
Danke. Und für euch da draußen, was für ein Gehassel das ist, was hier rauskommt, das ist so geil, macht so Bock zu saufen. In diesem Sinne, Hip-Hop, Leute.
Stell jetzt deine ganz persönliche...
Unbelievably, yeah? Very well done.
Yeah.
Very steep, very steep. And the lifts, how do you call it? The system to bring down the trolley that you go like a train. Does it has a name in German?
We call it monorail, Monorackbahn.
Yeah.
It's we buy it in Switzerland, and the Swiss people say we have to pay the Japanese for this, so they call that's the reason they make it so expensive. So they say we have to pay them and them and them and them. I don't know. At the end of the day, it's but it's no. At the end of the day, it's the only tool to maintain those vineyards, to bring down the grapes, but also to bring up stones to repair the walls. This is for the moment, the biggest challenge is to repair the walls.
Reinhard, I have a question in the chat. Someone is asking if you had any problems the last years, who were, I think, slightly warmer than the years before, of sunburn. Did the vines get into stress? Did you have sunburn or not?
Yeah, sunburn is one of the big new challenges we have to fight for. But when you remember the video, maybe you remember that all the lines had to be on horizontal. And this is one aspect to fight against sunburn, because when we have a horizontal palisanders, then we have a little shadow from the lower line to the higher one. Mm-hmm. And then we can put away the leaves in the grape zone, but we still have shadow to bring them. Mm-hmm. It's a big problem to find a compromise between the need that we have shadow on the grapes, not only for sunburn reason, also to prohibit what we call the petrol taste. When they're too much in the sun, we have this aggressive, not so nice petrol flavors, which some people call, this would be typical for Riesling, when they have drunk too much bad Rieslings from Alsace, then it's true. But for me, petrol taste is not an aspect of Riesling, it's a fault of Riesling. And I'm very happy that I'm a good friend with Jean-Michel Dice, and we are very agree in this aspect that petrol taste is not a good aspect of Riesling. It's the child of when you make too much mistakes in the growing. No? So we don't want to have petrol. We want to have flavor of the soil and the flavor of the ripe fruit. And petrol will kill everything of this. No? Now we have problems with sunburn, and it's but we have to learn to fight against. And I think we are quite good. It's a problem like last year we had. Like, for example, in 2018, it was so hot and unbelievable hot and dry, but we had nearly no sunburn because we had enough leaves. In 19, we had very low leaves, and so we got a little bit sunburned because the leaf canopy was not how you call it, thick enough to prohibit the sun to pass through. No? This is it's always, we always have the problem with sunburn. We have, which is always driven by the changement of the climate. We have a stupid caterpillar which is coming up to eat the buds before they come out, which when I was young, it didn't happen. No? We have more hail because when it's more warm, then we have more extremely hot climate in summer, which means also that we get more hail falls. Also something which is quite new for us, but it's very popular to argument against the global warming, and I'm also fighting against this because we want to keep our planet in a safe future and all this. But I have to admit that for the moment, the global warming is very good for us. Because at the end of the day, the global warming allows me to have ripe grapes every year, which was not normal 20, 40, 100 years ago. 100 years ago or 50 years ago, it happened that there was 1 year with ripe grapes where you had a nice and drinkable wine, and you had 2 vintages where the grapes were so green and sour that they were objectively shit, undrinkable, unripe, where you could make a verjus, but not a really good drinking wine with. Yeah, and now, thanks to global warming, we have ripe berries every year. And this brings us to a new situation. That brings us to the situation that we can start the discussion of terroir. You know, in my grandfather's time, the question was, is the berry ripe enough to make a good drinkable wine or not? Now, where thanks to global warming, we have nothing than ripe berries, we can discuss about the identity of a vineyard. We can speak about terroir in the sense of the outdoor taste of a soil and speak the taste of this blood I prefer, and that judge to be better than the taste of the other soil. This is a very new, maybe very old. It happened maybe in the 11th, 12th century before the small ice age we had in the Middle Ages. But for us now in Europe, for the last few hundred years, this is a new challenge. Yeah. We can really discuss about the quality of a vineyard. This is a fantastic new story. And all what we discuss about terroir in the last years, it's only possible through the global warming.
Yeah. So we do a little translation.
Nothing than ripe grapes. Long time now. No?
Dus er was een vraag over de zonnebrand, of dat er de laatste jaren, omdat er toch wel wat opwarming is, of dat er dan wat last is van zonnebrand. Dus dat de druiven echt verbranden omdat ze te weinig schaduw hebben. Dat kan zijn doordat het bladerdek wat te weinig is, of in het algemeen dat ze wat te weinig schaduw krijgen. Dus hij zegt dat er inderdaad de laatste jaren wel wat last is van zonnebrand. Maar je hebt gezien, je hebt die horizontale lijnen op de verschillende terrassen. Dus de ene lijn zorgt ervoor dat er wat schaduw is voor de andere. Aangezien dat je in terrassen werkt, had de ene horizontale lijn bij wijze van spreken wat schaduw geven op de volgende. Maar je zegt van het is altijd een beetje zoeken om langs de ene kant wel wat schaduw te hebben, langs de andere kant niet te veel. En dan maakt hij eigenlijk vlot de overgang naar global warming. Dus hij zegt van ja, het is altijd wel met de natuur en soms tegen de natuur. De global warming heeft het voordeel dat de druiven mooi rijp worden ieder jaar, wat vroeger niet het geval was. En vroeger hadden soms te veel aciditeit, te weinig rijpe druiven, te veel groen. Langs de andere kant, ja, door de global warming zit je nu ook met enerzijds de zonnebrand, die een challenge is. Anderzijds ook hagel, die toch wel wat frequenter optreedt dan vroeger. We hebben dat ook de laatste jaren in Frankrijk gezien, dat er bepaalde zones zijn die serieuze last hadden van hagelbuien. Rupsen is ook iets wat meer en meer voorkomt, wat er vroeger totaal niet was. En dat hij zegt van nu hebben we toch wel wat last van rupsen die toch wel serieuze honger hebben en serieus kunnen vreten, wat niet zo goed is voor de plant en misschien wel stress met zich meebrengt. Dus het is altijd een beetje zoeken. Maar hij zegt het voordeel van de global warming is eigenlijk dat je nu echt kunt spreken over terroir. Hij doet een gewaagde uitspraak over het feit dat petrolgeur in Riesling. Hè. Iedereen zegt van Riesling, dat is dan met petrolgeur. Dat eigenlijk, hij noemt dat een fout, te veel fouten in het wijnmaken. Dat is niet het geval. En hij zegt dat door de global warming je nu echt over terroir kan spreken. Nu kan echt een terroir naar buiten treden, bij wijze van spreken, en het verschil maken tussen twee wijnen. Ik denk dat dat ons ideaal brengt naar de volgende 2 wijnen, zou ik zeggen, om een beetje het uur in de gaten te houden. We hebben de eerste gedronken, is de Schieferterrassen. Dat is dus de Riesling die van verschillende plots of verschillende stukjes komt. En dan gaan we nu over naar de Von Blauwen Schiefer van 2018. En dan zou ik eigenlijk de derde daar ook al willen bijzetten. Dat is dan de Stolzenberg, ook 2018. Ik ga gewoon een keer het verschil vragen tussen de 2 en dan kunnen we ondertussen wel 2 en 3 proeven. What's the difference, Reinhard, between Von Blauwen Schiefer, if we talk about where they grow the vines, the Von Blauwen Schiefer, and the third one we will drink, the Stolzenberg 2018. Stolzenberg, what does it mean?
Yeah, thank you. First, maybe I give an answer to the question which was given me to ESCA. Yes, we have ESCA. We have ESCA problems, but much less than other regions in Moselle, so we are quite happy. For me, ESCA is correlated with new grapes. Fortunately, we have very old grapes. The average is more than 60 years old. And the really old, the old wines, they don't have ESCA. Very seldom they have. Wines which was planted in the 80s of the last century, they have a little bit more ESCA. But I'm really happy for not having really serious problems with this now. Okay, to the question. You know, the idea of winemaking for us is, as I told already, not to make a good taste, but to give you a taste which is authentic to the soil. The Schieferterrassen is coming from a special geological fermentation, which is called Rittersturzschichten, which is especially slate, which is sandy. The phenotypus is more in the gray-brown color. The blue slate is, as the name gives you the information, coming from a blue slate. The blue color is coming from a high plankton percentage, which is in the soil. And the plankton is also responsible for the high clay content of this soil. So in general, the Schieferterrassen and the Von Blauen Schiefer, they play a little bit the game of antithesis, where Schieferterrassen normally shows much more fruitiness. The Von Blauen Schiefer is more on the cool, stony side of life. Now we have also the switch in the vintages, so the vintage shows its identity, so it's not so easy to find out this. But the Von Blauen Schiefer is more it shows more coolness, it shows more crispiness, it shows more minerality, deepness. And for those people who are looking for flower power, they would prefer Schieferterrassen. And those people who learned to appreciate minerality, they go for that. It's more the intellectual. It's also the question where you have learned which wine culture you're coming from. Let me say this. You're in Belgium, you are much more French developed or educated in palate. So I see most Belgian people going to Von Blauen Schiefer because in the French approach to wine, fruitiness normally has more the aspect of c'est pour nana. It's something which is not really so much appreciated. The Germans, they prefer much more Schieferterrassen because they prefer much fruitiness. So, but it's at the end of the day, both vineyards are classified not to be Grand Cru, they're classified to be Premier Cru. And but it's the entry level of our winery, those wines, but they show very well the tension between the more fruity aspect and the more cool mineral aspect of wine.
It's not in the tasting, Reinhard, but we also have on the list Schieferterrassen and orange, which is 2015, which is still.
Yes.
Can you explain what we can expect from that?
Yeah, this is the the contribution to my cellar master. I'm not the generation orange. I'm the generation terroir. I want to taste the vineyard. Orange wine can be sexy, but he will never show you a vineyard. He will never show you even not a grape and not a region. So I'm not fighting for this wine, but I have to admit, especially speaking about my cellar master, she used to live in India for a year, and we got invitations to her to Indian kitchen. And when you have a really, really hot curry, this wine fits fantastic. But because when you have a wine like what you have in the glass now, and you bring it together with hot spices, the wine is dead. You have nothing anymore. But the high structure of phenolics, orange wine means you make a white wine in the way as usual you make a red wine. So that's the story. Using very low sulfur, but having a fermentation on skin, which gives you high aspect of phenolics. So this wine has no elegance, but power up to the end. These wines, they will have harmony also when you wait 20, 50 years, then the phenolics will get polymerized and then they will get softer. But it's also maybe the question that I'm getting older and I don't have to be so strictly said this is the only highway to heaven. It's okay. Why not make a wine like this? It's funny. And I have to admit, sometimes I open a bottle for that and just to have another taste on palate. But it's against the idea of Reinhard Löwenstein. No?
Yeah, the label is also different. If you see the bottle, you don't see on the list every bottle is the same picture, but in real life, the bottle has another label.
There is a need to have another label, but because the label means a certain style of wine, which we make since 40 years now. And when we do something completely different, we should communicate this to not to make us too much enemies.
Okay, and then if we go to Stolzenberg, the third wine, we talked about that, I guess. Huh? No, the Stolzenberg, the difference between the Blaue Schiefer and the Stolzenberg.
Yeah, the Stolzenberg, I want to tell you, Stolzenberg is now the first Grand Cru we have in this range. And you will find out that Grand Cru will not taste that much better than the others. So the question for us to judge this one to be Premier Cru or Grand Cru is maybe not driven by any objectives of wine taste. It's our private decision to say the taste of this wine has much more typicity, authenticity. It's much more unique that we allow us to judge this to be a Grand Cru. There was in the chat, there was a short question about the acidity, which I missed. I'm not good in this chat. Can sweetness and I know I got the question. Can sweetness and acidity go together? Yes, the idea of sweetness and acidity is what I spoke in the early beginning. It's a question of harmony. It's not only the sweetness and the acidity, it's also the phenolics and the sharpness of the alcohol and the creaminess of the structure. All those aspects of wine that can go together. And I think it's a question of quality. When you have a bad wine, which is sweet and sour, you will never find its harmony. It's the same when you have a shitty red wine, which has nothing than wood and some I don't know what flower power flavor, the wine never will come to harmony. But when the wine is good, then on the timeline, for me, I would say the wine is drinkable when you will not smell or you will not taste sugar and acidity differently on your palate. As long as this is to taste differently, the wine is not ripe, which does not mean that sometimes an unripe wine is very sexy to mix with especially food. Sometimes it can be fantastic to have a sweet and sour aspect to some especially flavors. No problem. No? But from the perspective of a wine is, it's same with the red wine. As long as I smell any wood in a red wine, I would say the wine is either he's bad or he's too young. Yeah, Stolzenberg is it's a village, Hatzenport. It's 10 kilometers far from my village, and we engaged in two plots there in Kirchberg and in Stolzenberg, because these two plots, they show a taste which we cannot produce in our village here. And my idea when we installed the winery was to have let me see, a radius of 10, 15 kilometers where you can work seriously, that we cover all soils which are specific and show those wines. And so we bought the plot in Stolzenberg, and voila. So we have a taste which is even different. It's more on the mineral. It's also very mineral, but he has another expression of minerality. And we have problems to speak about fruit flavors. Now we speak of peaches and apples and whatever. This also is, it's not easy, but speaking about different flavor expressions of minerality, I'm sorry, but the language will not allow me to speak. Then we sometimes say dusty and okay, but at the end of the day, we should taste it and drink it and enjoy or hate it, but we shouldn't speak too much. I'm sorry, but I'm not able to speak seriously about taste. Taste happens. Taste was developed 400 million years ago in the limbic system in our brain, when the fishes started to discover the land, and then there was a nerve structure in the back which made a round, and the fishes, they had to taste, so the orientation for a fish was to taste. And this is a heritage we have in our subconscious since long time. And now, since maybe 5 or 10,000 years, we start to speak, and we want to bring emotions which are 400 million years old, deep covered in our limbic system. We want to bring them in the cortex, and we want to give them a voice. It's bullshit. It cannot happen. We can try to speak, and when we are close together, we find a common language to wine. This is true. But at the end of the day compare it with music. It's difficult enough to speak about music. When I speak with my children, is this music loud or not? They have another approach to the question if it's loud or not. Some things are noisy for me, and they say, no, it's harmonious. So it's a cultural question, and cultural wording, heritage, there are a million things coming together. And for me, I would say the more you speak about wine, the less you can enjoy it. It has also something to do with, imagine you're sitting in the opera and you're reading the libretto. You will never understand the opera because you are here, you are in your cortex. And wine is an invitation to open your mind, to let come it inside, to speak to your subconscious, and to be surprised what's coming out. So for me, drinking wine is open your mind, let it happen, and have a look what fantasy, when I say the wine tastes Gummibärchen or I don't know, to any drops or any sweets or what, the subconscious doesn't know any negation. When I say the wine does not taste chocolate, the wine will taste chocolate because chocolate is there. but it is a violation of your way of approach. You should ask your subconscious, you should listen to the wine. You should allow the wine to give you and to interact with you. This is the way to interact with culture. When I go to an exhibition of art, I don't want to have someone nearby standing me this and then this, and then the painter was thinking about this. No, sorry, I want to see and to hear and to enjoy, and I want to be surprised and to be disappointed. I want to have feelings and not all the ideas of speak about wine is. It's also a profanization of a divine product. The more you speak, the less you are in the wine, the more you are in your mind, and the more you are in logics. And it's very human that we want to control and we want to understand. I'm also on, sometimes I produce it, so if it's good, I'm happy. If it's not good, I want to know what I made wrong. It's true that I'm thinking about wine, but everything at its place. When we drink wine and enjoy it, I want to invite you to enjoy the wine and to listen what the wine is telling you and those stories he will telling you. And this maybe is a difference between a plastic wine and a terroir wine. I think a terroir wine can tell you a lot of stories, and the plastic wine will tell you always the same story. When you drink Coca-Cola, it's the same story. But when you drink a good bottle of wine, it will be different. And even when you have a developed palate, you will have a lot of different emotions when you drink the wine in the morning or in the evening, or in a big glass, or in a low temperature or high temperature. But this is the proof of a good wine, that he shows a lot of different aspects. And it's not the fail of a bad journalist that is not able to find back the same wine. A good journalist will be able to listen to the wine, and he will discover a lot of different aspects of the wine, and he will give a different description of the wine 10 times a day. This is a proof that he's able to listen to the wine, and not a proof that he's a stupid man who will not be able to give a serious, objective description. No, this is a world of industry and the world of culture, and you have to decide which side you are on. Even when you make the wine and also when you drink the wine.
Dus ik denk, ja, het is eigenlijk eenvoudig in een paar woorden te zeggen, hetgeen waar dat op neerkomt. En verbeter me, Dimitri, als ik niet volledig ben. Het gaat over luister naar de wijn, luister naar ontdek de wijn. Denk niet te veel na over wat smaak ik en welke vruchten smaak ik. Maar laat gewoon de wijn spreken voor zich. Hij maakt de perfecte vergelijking met het, als hij naar een tentoonstelling gaat en hij kijkt naar een kunstwerk, dan houdt hij er niet van dat iemand ernaast staat die voorzegt wat hij eigenlijk allemaal kan zien in het kunstwerk. Hij wil gewoon zelf ontdekken en iedere keer opnieuw ontdekken en verrast worden. Ik denk dat dat een beetje het credo is van Start2Taste ook uiteindelijk. Continu verrassen en niet te veel zitten nadenken van ik ruik bloemetjes en welke bloemetjes en ik smaak fruit en welk fruit. Is dat nu ananas of overrijpe ananas? Nee, gewoon denken aan de druif zelf, aan de terroir. I have a question, Reinhard, if you talk about the expression of terroir, because I have a lot of questions in the chat, more or less talking about that. Some people ask if some terroir, the color of the terroir makes a difference. Some people say the fruity expression, is it a result of the vineyard or the vinification? So in one sentence, if you talk about terroir, do you always use the same, let's say, vinification to let the terroir speak? Or do you use other vinifications between the different wines we taste now?
You know, when that years ago, we started to speak about terroir. And at this time, people took me for a fool. People at the university said the wine taste is made in the cellar. Terroir is something of the marketing guys to sell the wine, to give them a cultural frame and so on. And so it was, even for me, it was very important, very, very important to do the vinification 100% the same, even to prove myself that the taste is coming from the vineyard, and that's what I'm doing in the cellar. But I have to admit now, as we are working some 40 years, some 30 years, depend the vineyard, on the same plot, now sometimes I'm starting to think about, I have an idea of Rottgen, I have an idea of Rotwein, and should I not do in this wine a little bit more batonnage and here a little bit less? Because I have the idea that Rottgen, the identity of Rottgen shows the tropical fruit salad. So if I make too much batonnage, I will destroy it. So I'm now in a development process that I very slowly start to allow me to do a little bit different in the cellar. But 99% is the same, just for have to be sure that this is. This is, I just see here another question about the Spätlese question, to be Spätlese or not. All the wines you drink by German wine law, they are Auslese. They are Auslese trocken. So this is the sugar level, what we have in our wines is always so high that we could, sometimes it's only Spätlese, but in general it's in very hot years, then it can be only Spätlese, because when it's very hot and the water is missing, then the assimilation will not give me that much sugar. But the system is inverse now, because the theory is the more sugar, the more alcohol you have. And this happens in fat, watery soils and flat areas. For those, this logic is correlationship is okay. But when we work on our slopes, at the end of the day, the water is missing, not the sun is missing. And just look knows the old wines we made in 2003 and 2004. 2003 was at this time the hottest year ever and the driest one. And 2004 was a very shitty vintage where everyone said the wines are not dry, it's too sour and so on. And believe me, the potential alcohol in both years in my vineyards were 100% the same. We had 100% the same Oxlane average in those years, which means in the bad year, it was warm enough to bring them to a serious level. And in the hot year, it was too hot to get too much alcohol. It's the same with the discussions now. People have to say, oh, what you do, you have to fight against alcohol, you have to pick them earlier. For us, this is exactly not a cup of tea, because in those dry slopes, there is no water, and so the assimilation will stop. So we never have, I would say never have more than 13 degrees or 13.23 in our wines. And in general, we never have less than 12.5. This is for me, one of the proof, to speak about a Grand Cru, by the way, because a Grand Cru vineyard for me is not a vineyard who gives me fantastic wine once in 10 years. For me, a Grand Cru vineyard means that in all climates, in all vintages, in all extremely situations, the wine shows firstly good, and secondly gives me the idea of the plot. Then you can seriously speak about a Grand Cru. No? So the ripe fruit, do you go to that level? Yeah, the botrytis. I don't know, maybe you know our wines from further years. The question was if we go to get the level of alcohol through botrytis. We had this when we started. When we started our winemaking, we had to find out how to make a dry wine which was drinkable in Moselle, because there was no model for us. There was no dry wine in the Moselle which was drinkable from me. And then we said, okay, the botrytis in the wine is like crème fraîche in a sauce that makes it a little bit more creamy, more accessible. It cuts the acidity and all this. And 40 years ago, our wines on average, they were younger, the yields were higher, our knowledge was not that what it is today. And in those years, we had a lot of botrytis, and we were happy for that. Now we had to learn that we don't need botrytis to have a mouthful wine. So all the wines you have in the glass, there is 100% without any botrytis. So one of the manipulations we allow ourselves is after the picking, we bring the table on the sorting table and we put out all botrytis because we want to have not one botrytis in these dry wines. So we put out the botrytis. When he is bad, we put it on the comp. When he is so la, we make a cuvée gastronomique, which we sell under the table, not to destroy our brand. And when it's good, we make high-end sweet wines. And the botrytis is good for us, not when there is a lot of sugar inside. This is one of the stupid thinkings of most people. The botrytis is good when there's a high acidity level. Because make a sweet wine, this is boring. A sweet wine is bad. A wine which is sweet and sour at the same time, on the same energy level. This is what we're looking for. So good botrytis for us means that the concentration of acidity and of sugar, and on the same energy level, then we have it in our dry wines.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. In fact, it's about concentration not only of the sugars, but also of the acidity. So you have a perfect balance between both. Yeah.
It's much more difficult to get the botrytis with acidity than to get it with sugar. When you want to have sugar, you have to wait.
Yeah, that's easy.
But it's very funny when you go back. When I go back now in my memory, the best really sweet wines we picked in the very early beginning of grapes picking period, because then the acidity level was still high. When then you have a concentration, then you have a high acidity. But when you go far in November, then we had fog, then we had rainfalls, we had like a Ziehharmonika with the scrambling, and then the acidity is gone away by bacterial infections. And then at the end of the grapes picking period, the botrytis normally is not good enough to make sweet wines anymore. So it's also against all the public opinion about we have to wait long time that botrytis comes and at the end of the day you make the best wine. This is not true. This is also the story with ice wine. No? People who wait till January or February to make an ice wine. Sorry, it's a straw, a rotten straw, what you will press then. It's no. Good ice wine you make in November when the grape is still healthy. And then you get a frost, then you can make an ice wine. But not in January. This should be forbidden. Sorry, it's a bit dry to custom.
Okay. So I think we can go over to the fourth wine, the Rottgen. As you mentioned, it's more the exotic touch. Let's say it's. I think there is also more iron in the soil.
I have a picture of the vineyard of Rottgen.
Mm-hmm.
This is it, huh?
This
right?
is
Correct?
This is the Tower of Babylon.
Yeah, wow.
I don't think so. It goes up to the heaven.
Yeah, the stairway to heaven. Yeah.
This
Very
is
well, nice.
stairway to heaven. This makes me always thinking about this, the Tower of Babylon picture of which hanging there in Amsterdam. It's hanging. And Rottgen, there's more iron in the soil, but this is it's more visible iron. The problem is with iron is you see a soil which is yellow or which is red and say, wow, there's a lot of iron. But iron, there can be blue, but there can be also the same percentage of iron. But the question is in which form you see the iron. It's oxygenized or not oxygenized. And so you can say the iron is like, it's oxygenized, it's iron 3+, which you find in Rottgen. But when we speak about Rottgen, I say Rottgen is, it's brown caused by the iron. This is true. But when you break the stone, you will see that inside Rottgen stone is blue. So you could say it's a blue slate or a yellow slate. So I say to have an easier communication, because when you cruise there, you see the yellow color. So I say it's a yellow slate. No? But the question how oxygenized the iron is, it happens, but I cannot bring a correlation to the taste. And I'm not sure if there is a correlation. But we want to have a system, so we want to give it to a system. So we say, and I say, okay, the blue slate is there. Rottgen is the yellow brownish slate. But what's also typical for Rottgen is there is a high percentage of petroleum in the taste, in the stone. So when you see places in Rottgen where the rock is in the sun for 50 years, then they get blue shining colors like the petrol is cooked out of the slate. This is also typical for Rottgen. But this is the stone, but bring this in correlation with the taste, I have no idea. For me, Rottgen taste is, yeah, it's always a little bit more tropical fruit. It's always always not, but very often a little bit stinking. It's a little bit durian. It's not the pure ripe pineapple. And the durian is also something what gives me a good idea of what a good wine is. And it's more a philosophical question, what you like or not to like. I like a little bit this alienation, this little bit, this wine stinks. So is it good or is it bad? For me, it's very human to stink a little bit. So I'm happy to find this in the wine. I don't like the plastico, fantastico, very pure. But it's up to you to judge this in the wine. But Rottgen is, in my village, today it's not allowed to speak in these categories, but for centuries, it was always said that the Rottgen is the ladies' wine because it shows more the fruitiness, which was more brought to the female aspect of life, and the Ulen is more the power of minerality of male. I don't know, but this is tradition, and it's true that when I speak in this terms, I would say the Rottgen, he has a crispy minerality and smoky and burnt chocolate aspects. But at the end of the day, when he is ripe, he's more the mother milk, the wine I drink on the sofa to enjoy, to relax. And it's not so energy than I have in Uhlen wine or even in Stolzenberg. This is not the wine I feel to have a finger in a plug that gives me electricity. It's more that the relaxing aspect of, which makes it fantastic to have a little bit more spicy flavors with this wine. Huh? So with a very hot Thai curry, you should not have it, but a little bit coriander, a little bit, then fantastic. I drink it, by the way. I'm drinking Rottgen today.
Yeah. You mentioned already the next generation. It's also your daughter, and which maybe has another impression. But there was a nice movie I found, which is passing on the new generation. So maybe we should share that in this session.
Über Wein reden ist Quatsch, weil ich möchte lieber über Wein fühlen, das aus dem limbischen System nach oben wandert oder für Bilder und Emotionen evoziert werden, wenn man Wein trinkt. Das ist das Ass jetzt hier, ne? Als wir anfingen, habe ich geglaubt, ganz lieb sein zu müssen, das alles so zu machen wie die Kollegen rechts und links, und habe dann aber nach spätestens 3 Jahren gemerkt, dass niemand diesen Wein trinken möchte. Mir selbst hat er auch nicht so richtig geschmeckt. Und dann war ich so ein bisschen fatalistisch drauf, dass ich gesagt habe, wir machen jetzt den Wein genauso, wie wir wollen.
Aber es gibt kaum was Schöneres als gute Schule. So wie wir arbeiten, das ist ganz viel Bauchgefühl, ganz viel Sensorik, einfach Geschmack. Und meine Eltern haben natürlich einen ganz anderen Erfahrungsschatz, auf den sie zurückgreifen können. Und ich wäre blöd, wenn ich diesen Erfahrungsschatz nicht nutzen würde für mich.
Muss immer schräg in den Berg, damit die Kraft in den Berg reingeht. Und ohne Mörtel, dass alles Wasser, was von hinten ist, rauslaufen kann.
Der Mauerpfeffer, der hier anfängt zu blühen.
400 Millionen Jahre alter Meeresboden, das schmecken sie. Ja, wer glaubt an sowas, dass man das schmecken kann? Aber wir tun's. Lach nicht, ist ernst.
Ohne dieses Team, was wir haben, würde das Weingut nicht so existieren, wie es existiert. Aber wenn irgendwas schief geht, finde ich, ist es schon wichtig, dass die Chefin dann irgendwie auch den Kopf hinhält und dafür gerade steht. Mein Vater muss es nicht mehr machen, der hat das lang genug gemacht. Den Kopf hingehalten.
Anfang der 90er Jahre waren wir mal richtig klassisch auch bankrott und dann bin ich halt zur Sparkasse in Koblenz gegangen und habe mich ein bisschen ordentlich angezogen und habe Tiefluft geholt und habe argumentiert. Und obwohl wir auch in das Beuteschema einer Sparkasse nicht unbedingt passen mit langen Haaren und grünen Ansichten, aber trotzdem gab es auch da Leute, die gesagt haben, ja, da ist ein Spirit, da ist was dahinter, das unterstützen wir. Das muss ich sagen, das habe ich auch der Sparkasse nicht vergessen. Ich werde einen Double tun, die Bank zu wechseln, weil das gehört sich nicht.
Ich habe das Gefühl, das wird so ineinander übergehen. Und dann kommen die beiden einfach nur noch zum Weintrinken vorbei. Und dann irgendwann, wenn sie keine Lust mehr haben, Wein zu trinken, dann halt nicht mehr.
Ich habe eine tolle Tochter, die sieht, was wir gemacht haben. Und die sieht vor allen Dingen, wo man neue Ideen realisiert. Und das ist klasse. Das ist toll zu sehen.
Wachs schön. Ich wünsche dir ein gutes Leben. Aber eigentlich schimpfe ich eher mit denen, wenn sie nicht ordentlich wachsen.
Next generation is there. Thanks,
Yeah.
Good job.
And good so.
Yeah.
Really good so. No, it's I think it works very well because we never pushed her to take over the winery. We always said, if you really want, you can, but you will get it only when you have made your bac. You said bac, I don't know the English word. Baccalaureate, Abitur, I don't know the English word for that. When you made your bac,
your degree, yeah.
Yeah, when you have lived in a foreign country, when you have studied something what you really want to study, and then when you are nearby 30 years old, when you really then want, then you can get it. But I will not give you the winery when you are 20, because then you are too young. And this was a poker, but it worked. At the age of 28, I think, something in the corner, she came and said, oh, maybe I make an apprenticeship and the stage there to see. And then she said, okay, I'll take it over. And now it works. I'm very happy to give up. And I'm, for the moment, no problems. I hope that will continue like that. I don't know. But we are really discussing about, she said, it's me, it's up to me to. I said, I will help you. No. If I need help, I will come to ask you. Okay. And it works.
Maybe an interesting question. If you have your daughter now working in the vineyards with you, do you think that the female touch can change the styles of wines?
No. I don't see a female touch or a male touch. This is, I know what you mean in this, but when you declare that males are cruel and aggressive and ladies have empathy, then it's true. But I feel myself in this question very female. I love my wines and have the same empathy there. I don't see this. What I see is more the generation story, because, you know, when I was at school, we were egoists. I have to work and I do it by myself. My daughter in school she learned to be in group and to have discussions in group and to develop things in group. And this is a new quality. So I would say that the generation of my daughter, they are much more social than me, which is very good for the relationship to our workers. She has much more passion to listen and to discuss. I don't like to discuss too much when I say that this, we have to do it and go that way. So there are more generation stories to handle than the question male or female. This for me is...
Yeah, okay.
So do you develop... There I see a very good question. Do you develop your own new wines from taking off springs of the old wines? This is what we do. And we do it a little bit in the, let me call it the gray zone of the legal, of the justification, because it's not allowed what we do, because we take our own grapes and we make uncrafted woodstocks with them. And the German law doesn't allow me to plant uncrafted wines, but the German law allows me to replant uncrafted wines in uncrafted plots. And all plots we have, there is a certain percentage of uncrafted wines. So maybe I'm waiting for the tribunal where they bring me, maybe when they say I planted it illegal, and then I say, but look, there is uncrafted wines, and from what percentage of uncrafted you declare this to be uncrafted, we will see. But this is what we do since years. We never buy, no, it's not true. Once I bought in Alsace crafted wines because I wanted to hire the biodiversity of our vineyards. Because what we made in our area since more than a few hundred years, I wanted to have some grapes from Alsace, from a sélection massale to plant, to see what may be nice or good or better or worse for our vineyards. But what we do in general, in winter, we cut some thousand branches, and then we bring them to a nursery, and then 2 years later we get them back and we plant them. And we plant Uhlen in Uhlen and Rottgen in Rottgen, not to mix the microclimate adaptation of the grapes. No? So step by step we high up the percentage of uncrafted wines, which is one of the secret of winemaking, I think. One of the biggest problems are the American rootstocks. You know, people say this is phylloxera, and then we have, my family makes wine since 500 years, and when I asked my father, and he said, there was no phylloxera, there never has been phylloxera in Uhlen and Rottgen. They planted American rootstocks to high up the yields. This was the reason at the end of the day. It was like America make it bigger and more, and we learned that the European rootstocks, they don't make the high yields, but in long terms, they bring us better crops, because even in the negative side, they still, even if everything is rotten, they are healthy. You know?
Okay. I think it's time to go over to the fifth, so I will do a little translation. De vraag was eigenlijk of dat ze zelf zorgen voor hun eigen nieuwe wijnstokken. Dus het is zo dat hij uiteindelijk niet met die Amerikaanse onderstokken werkt, maar dus de scheuten neemt en opnieuw opkweekt en dat als nieuwe wijnstokken aanplant. Zodanig dat je dus eigenlijk iedere keer de genetische informatie van je authentieke, van je eerste wijnstok terug hebt in je wijngaard. Dus dat is wat hij doet. Hij spreekt ook even over die phylloxera. Er was phylloxera vroeger. En dan zijn die Amerikaanse onderstokken gebruikt, waarop dat er dan geënt werd. Om dus tegen die phylloxera te kunnen ingaan, omdat die Amerikaanse onderstokken daar geen last van hadden. Hij gelooft dat niet. Hij zegt, Of hij betwijfelt dat een beetje. Hij zegt van die Amerikaanse onderstokken waren niet de bedoeling om de phylloxera tegen te gaan, maar wel om uw opbrengst te verhogen. So I think it's time to go over to the fifth wine, the Rottgen 2018. As I have seen, there's a sort of a natural amphitheater where these vines grow.
Yeah, the Rottgen and all the other Uhlens, they show the archetype of a vineyard because it's a bow in Moselle where the burning point is facing south. And this is from the microclimate where we say it cannot be better because it's round, it faces south. So the energy burning point is there. We have the reflection from Moselle. We have a belt of trees to protect, to give always a little bit water in summer, even when it's very dry. But the identity of Rottgen is to have this little bit reddish soils. You see it on the pictures there. It's iron in the form of hematite, which is the proof of the tropical coming from these vineyards, because in our climate the soil will not be, the iron will not be come to change to hematite because it's not hot enough. But this was a tropical sea ground who was pressed together, and this makes Rottgen so special. I don't know if it's the red color to make it that special. This is, the phenotype is what we see. It's red, and it has a little bit iron taste. In my private fantasy, iron taste in the sense that I sometimes have the feeling when I taste the wine, my fantasy goes to lick iron, or to have a little bit licorice, also to have violet flavors. This gives me the memory of Rottgen, 1 year more, 1 year less. But in a blind tasting, when I have a wine which shows a little bit iron, licorice, then I say that should be Rottgen. Mostly I'm right, not always, but sometimes. But I see another question from Nikki, why I don't put Auslese on the bottle. Why should I? Auslese means a certain level of sugar. I'm not interested to communicate the amount of sugar. I'm interested in the identity, which is the question Rottgen or not. No? And Rottgen gives the identity of the wine and not the question if there is a little bit more and less sugar in it. Especially, as I told already, I could label all my wines to be Auslese. And when I call everything Auslese, this is as stupid when I call everything to be Grand Cru. It cannot happen that everything is Grand Cru. And the other aspect of this is that the word Auslese mostly is learned by the people to describe a sweet wine, same to Spätlese. No? And in the beginning we gave this information, and I learned that a lot of customers looked to the label and said, Auslese, this is sweet, I don't want to drink it. And when we put away it, then they dared to try the wine. So Auslese is not good to sell wine. And on the other side, Auslese, Auslese dry and Spätlese dry is a very new story. It started some 30 years ago that winemakers made this. And for maybe 100 years before, the wine scene learned that when people called it Spät or Auslese, then it was a synonymous for sweet wine. And I think it's very useful to use these terms to communicate the sweetness character of a wine. You know, when you are in Burgundy and the appellation allows you nothing then to make dry wines, then you don't have a need to speak about the wine dry or not. But when you are speaking about France, when you are in Loire and you have sweet wines or demi-sec wines, then it makes sense to speak about the sugar because the customer should have a little orientation in what it is. You can go to the story like in Banyuls. Now, when you make a dry wine in Banyuls, you have to call it Collioure, and when you make a sweet wine in Collioure, you have to call it Banyuls. This is also a way to communicate wine. but this for me has a little bit ugu because I give the name of a village, but at the end I give a name of the style of the wine. So this is a bit contradiction. Eh? So I think in the communication of wine, when we make Rieslings, which are not only dry, we should give you as a customer the information of what it is. And instead of calling the wine sweet, half sweet, really sweet, extremely sweet, I prefer to use the old words like Spätlese and Auslese, Beerenauslese, because the focus is not on the sugar only. Because when we make a wine Auslese, then he has a lot of sugar, but also a lot of acidity, and it's not only the sugar question. And I hate sweet wines. I love wines which are in harmony with sugar and acidity and minerality. And so I think it was one of a very good story that what we decided in the movement of the VDP in the last 20 years, that when we made our new classification of vineyards, speaking about this is a Grand Cru vineyard, this is a Premier Cru, this is Village, to keep the old wordings Spätlese and Auslese, to communicate the question, is this wine sweet or not sweet? And so we use the term Auslese, but just to give you the idea of that there we are on the sugar level of, let me say, 120 grams of sugar per liter or something like that. This you should know, because when you go to have a wine to a sandwich, you don't want to have a sweet wine. So this is the problem we had in Alsace for a long time, that we drank a dry wine from Zentrumbrecht and it has 50 grams of sugar, and this is not dry, this is sweet.
Okay, I'm just looking at the clock to be sure that we don't get very far. Maybe it's time to taste something red now. Dus we gaan nu de rode proeven, de Schieferterrassen in rood 2017. So this is a Pinot Noir, as I understand, Schieferterrassen, so also coming from different plots.
Yeah, very original to have.
No, this is one plot only.
Okay.
This is one plot only. Schieferterrassen in Rot is one plot, and no, two plots, sorry. No, we lost it, so at the moment it's only one, but in this year, but they are nearby, so they are 100 meters far. It's an area in the Schieferterrassen area where it's a little bit colder and a little bit more wet, because the Pinot Noir needs a little bit more water than the Riesling. When you bring Pinot Noir in a really hot spot, then the Pinot Noir will get too much alcohol in our area. Years ago, we had Pinot Noir in a very, very good terraced vineyard, and we always had 14, 15 degrees of alcohol, and this is we are not looking for. In opposite, we are looking. If we would make a red wine there, we should go for Syrah there, and not for Pinot Noir. No? Pinot Noir, it's very funny that me personally, I have no problem when a Riesling sometimes has 13 or 13.5 alcohol, but Pinot Noir with 13.5 in general for me it's too much. I don't know why, but it's no. This is it's Schieferterrassen. It's the idea of not to copy Burgundy first. One of the sad story in the wine scene is that when people make a Pinot Noir, they always say, "Oh, is it as good as Burgundy or nearby as?" When they make sparkling, they say, "Oh, bloody hell, this is maybe better than Champagne or as good as Champagne." This is not culture. This is it's very stupid. It's infantile. I don't want to make bubbles which are as good as Champagne. And opposite, I want to make bubbles which show the identity of my vineyard. And I want to make a Pinot Noir which shows the identity of Slate, and not try to make a vinification that it looks like Burgundy. No? And for me, I really love this wine. I was not really convinced to make it. It was my daughter who started, this was her project, because I was always on the idea Pinot Noir and Moselle, no go, we make Rieslings. And if we have Pinot Noir, I said, okay, let's make sparklings. We made a Blonde Noir, which was quite nice. But my daughter said, no, I really love this. And we started with this program. And I have to admit that I really love this style of wine because it's light, it's atmospheric. It's not like, you have a Pinot Noir from Burgundy. It shows always horizontal. It shows always a wine which is has a structure, a ground structure. And here it's more something which goes up to heaven. And it's like Riesling. It's very atmospheric. It's very vertical. It's very blowing. And it shows a very nice aspect of Schieferterrassen. Therefore, after discussing in family, at the end we said it's Schieferterrassen in red because the identity of this wine is Schieferterrassen. And it's transmitted by the medium of Pinot Noir. And Pinot Noir and Riesling are both grapes which we love them because they don't have an auto taste. People speak, this is typical Pinot Noir, typical Riesling. This is bullshit. Because it's a typical Gewürztraminer, okay. And a typical Silvaner, okay. But Pinot Noir and Riesling, the typicity of these wines is not to have a typicity. The typicity of these wines is that they can play the role as a medium to bring the taste of the soil into the glass. And that's the reason we love them. It's true that when you have a Pinot Noir in Bouches du Rhône where he has 15 degrees alcohol, he will not show terroir, he will show alcohol. But this is not the question of the grape, it's the question of the stupidity of the winemakers to put this grape at the wrong place. Shit happens, it's the same story happens with Riesling. It would be the same story when I would try to make Nebbiolo in my slopes. That would be a thin and sour story. But the grape is not the problem of the grape. It's my idiocy of the winemaker. But no, we love Pinot Noir because it's a red Riesling, and we love Riesling because it's a white Pinot Noir. Both grapes show soil. Both grapes show subtlety, filigranity, finesse, and all the things we love in a wine. And so it's not that we will go to make 50% of Pinot Noir in future. Half of the product I drink by myself that we do, but some bottles we sell, and I love it. I love this product. I have to admit. And at the end of the day, I'm really happy that like Lucky sells some of these bottles in Belgium, where it's a French educated palate country. We export this wine to Italy, we export this wine to New Zealand, where you think they should have enough red wines. But it's at the end of the day, when you have a developed wine drinker palate, you like the special things. And this wine, this Pinot Noir, takes part of this really special wines of the world, where you say, blah, it's Pinot Noir, yes, but there is information which is not French, it's not chalk soils, it's maybe sea lakes, maybe, I don't know, but it's something atmospheric. And for that reason, at the end of the day, I'm very happy for this, that my daughter was pushing that way. They said, this is my story. And
I will do a little translation on one part you said. I like the part that you say that, in fact, the Pinot Noir and the Riesling are the in-between, or the in-between between the terroir and the wine. I love that part. Dus wat hij eigenlijk zegt is dat Riesling en Pinot Noir eigenlijk het medium zijn voor de expressie van de terroir. Of tussen de terroir en de wijn. De in-between, laat ons zeggen, tussen de twee. Dus ja, het hangt er ook weer vanaf van waar hij groeit. En hier heb je de echte expressie, zegt hij, van de leisteen via de Pinot Noir. De leisteen van de Schieferterrassen via de Pinot Noir in dit glas. Dus ik denk dat een heel mooie vergelijking is. Ik zie dat er wat vragen komen en misschien dat we nadien in het café, laat ons zeggen, wat meer dieper kunnen erop ingaan. Er komen inderdaad vragen van welke klonen gebruik je, zijn het de Duitse klonen of de Franse klonen, en de vinificatie en de maceratie en zo verder. Ongetwijfeld zeer, zeer goede en belangrijke vragen. Maar je ziet het vooral tussen een samenspel van factoren. Terug hetzelfde, hè. Dan komen we terug eigenlijk aan het begin. Zijn de harmonie en de expressie, de pure expressie van die terroirs en alle factoren daarbij. De factor van de wijnmaker, de factor van het wijnmaken, de factor van het klimaat, de terroir en zo verder. We kunnen eindeloos doorgaan. Dus ik denk dat dat ons terugleidt naar het begin, zijnde vooral de harmonie en de elegantie. Dimitri.
I grabbed some questions on this Pinot Noir in the
I just mentioned that maybe it would be nice to because after this let's say session or online tasting, we will leave the connection open for people who want to just chat like it's a pub, let's say, with a glass of wine. We can chat, we can talk, we can discuss. So maybe it's good to highlight these questions afterwards, if it's okay for you. So Dimitri, I don't know if you have something to add.
Maybe because we are a little bit over time, but no problem, because you're passionate and you talk about wine, of course, with all your heart, and it's a very big personality, and a big personality, which is very good. And maybe just a short resume about this tasting. It needs you, after this tasting, you start thinking about a lot of things, which is good. You have a glass of wine, like we said, the first two are on fruit-driven, fun to drink, but it starts thinking, it makes you wonder what the rest will be. And then when you go to the Grand Cru, it's every time a different approach. He managed to show really the soil, really the terroir, which we talked about, to show in your glass. I'm personally a huge fan of the last Riesling, the Ullen Rottgen, which is the tension which is in this wine is unbelievably. It will go forever, I guess. I'm very curious to taste this again with a couple of years and to follow it. So I need more bottles, of course, to age, to see how it evolves. But you know, this kind of connection, this kind of conversation with the wine, that makes it very interesting. Also, your thoughts makes it very interesting. The red wine, really, it's also one of my favorites. Really good job with this wine. Congratulate your daughter with it, because she forced you maybe to do this. Perfect. I like the wine a lot, of the wines in general a lot. Tomorrow we will send everybody also an extra list, because we also received a list with some older vintages, also with Magnum, with 3-liter bottles. That's going to be in your mailbox tomorrow for people who wants to experiment or buy these kind of wines. This is possible.
Voor de mensen die het Nederlands wat meer begrijpen, dus morgen krijg je sowieso een mail met de lijst van wat er beschikbaar is. Er zijn ook oude jaargangen beschikbaar en er zijn ook magnums beschikbaar. Dus dat wordt sowieso morgen doorgestuurd via mail, zoals we het normaal doen, met de link naar de opname van deze sessie. Je weet, ja, we zeggen dat altijd, hè, dat je 10% korting krijgt op het volledige gamma van
ik ging dat niet doen, zei Hans althans.
Sorry?
Ik ging het niet doen. Dus iedereen uiteraard krijgt, naar aanleiding van deze tasting, is er altijd een korting, een promotie die wij doen. Het is ook altijd leuk om de wijnbouwer om wat verkoop te stimuleren. Dus op deze manier 10% korting op Hans het Hamma, plus ook op die extra lijst die er morgen nog bij komt. So, I have only one last question, because I think it's important to share it. I'm going to show you a picture, but I need some explanation, or maybe the audience needs an explanation about this picture.
Yeah.
So, tell us.
Yeah, shit happens. We had the Moselle in the cellar, and it was in 90. Let me think about 90 in the winter 95, 96 at Sylvester around. And it was very funny because we had the water in the cellar, and 1 year before we had also the flood. And the 1 year before I was really like that. I couldn't sleep. I was dead. But 1 year later, I was a little bit relaxed because I've learned that it happens and it will not kill me. And then the situation was that the journalist was announced to take photographs of me. And then he came and said, okay, now it's the chance of your life. You can take strange pictures in the cellar. And I took my Sunday afternoon and I took my Borsalino and a nice cigar, and we made just for fun pictures in the cellar. And I had a lot of fun with this. This picture was made me quite famous because it was published in thousands of newspapers. Even in the Playboy, they took this picture with me. So I had an unbelievable audience, but also it was a provocation for those people who suffered from the flood. So I also had a very hardcore phone calls. How can you dare to laugh about the situation where we are suffering? So, okay, you cannot make everything happy, but it was, for me, we had a lot of fun, and I think it's shit happens. If things are there, you cannot change them. You can always start to cry, and you can laugh. And as a winemaker, we are living in the situation: is the bottle half empty or half full? And I belong to those guys who say, I'm happy that it's still half full. It's a question if you are depressive or more optimistic in the ground of your life. I belong to those guys who say, I'm happy that there's still something, and take the chance to make nice things. So it was one of the very nice ideas of, and we had a lot of fun. So I will continue that. It's life. That's it.
Very good. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you very much for your passionate explanation. Everybody learned a lot. Everybody starts thinking now about everything in the wine world and how to look at wines, and to, it was an honor to have you with us. So if you want, you can still stay, because now the pub is going to open, and now everybody's going to unmute, and we're going to have a glass of wine, and maybe somebody tell some jokes or have some questions. You never know. So you are more than welcome to stay with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Unfortunately, I'm starting to get hungry. I want to get a piece of bread now and I go to bed. I'm sorry not to be with you in the discussion. I was not thinking about having that long chat with you. So normally it's not my time to have a piece of bread. No, thank you so much. I'm happy that you could support this Riesling maker from Moselle so long time. Continue drinking good wines, continue learn, come up, and feel free to visit our homepage, where you find a lot of more pictures and impacts and informations about what we do. It's and if once it's not so far from where you're living, it's 2 hours, 2.5 hours by car. So if once you move in Moselle, and feel free visiting us. No? It's very nice cellar to see. We didn't spoke about the cellar. We didn't spoke about the feng shui installations we make in our cellar. So there are a lot of other aspects which we didn't had on the board tonight.
So you gave us the perfect reason to come to your place to discover more discoveries, more histories. And
there's always a sip of wine for you left.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. Have a good time. Bye-bye, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much.